It looks like Guilliman and Lionel Johnson are finally meeting. At the end of the first 500 Worlds campaign book, there's a transmission from the Dark Angels that comes directly from the Rock. The Lion is looking for Guilliman. This information comes from a couple of different channels, Arbiter Ian and Guerrilla Miniatures, who have already had access to the first 500 Worlds campaign book, Titus. On the last page of the book, there's a transmission from the Rock addressed directly to Reboot Guilliman. Apparently, the transmission comes with a lot of different information about where it was received, who accessed it, what signals it has, what authentication codes it has, etc, etc. The message was first received by a data reliquary on an agri-world west of Ultramar and accessed by Captain Halvros of the Nova Marines, who apparently is an Ultramar fighting in the 500 Worlds campaign. It seems like the message has been repeating itself for some time, so we don't really know how long ago it was sent. The important thing about the message is that it's confirmed that the transmission is coming directly from the Rock, the Dark Angels flagship, which at the time the transmission was sent was apparently approaching the Protoss border of Ultramar, that's to say to the west of Ultramar. The identification code of the transmission appears to be extremely old, so much so that Amagos points out that this could be corrupted data or some kind of glitch or error, but after carrying out a diagnosis and a security check to verify the identity, it's confirmed that the code is genuine and it's none other than Primarch Lionel Johnson. The message itself is very brief. The Lion simply says, "Brother, we need to talk." So yeah, it looks like we are finally going to get the reunion between brothers that we've been waiting for so long. Or at least it seems that Lionel Johnson is finally looking for Guilliman to have a little chat. We've all been waiting for this moment for years. Since the Arcs of Omen campaign, we've heard nothing from the Lion. We knew that Dante had revealed to him that his brother Guilliman was still alive and ruling the Imperium, but until now we haven't seen Lion make a move with that information, and now it looks like the Lion is finally seeking to reunite with his brother. Now, the last time we heard from the Lion, he was on the other side of the Cicatrix Maledictum, and now his flagship is approaching the western border of Ultramar. How on earth he managed to cross the Great Rift is a mystery for now, but in any case, the Lion has crossed half the galaxy to meet with his brother. However, there may be a problem. As Arbiter Ian explains in his video, according to the book 500 Worlds Titus, it looks like Guilliman isn't in Ultramar, leaving the reconquest of his realm in the hands of Titus, the Ultramarines and some successor chapters. Not even Calgar is there, who after Nachmund was deployed to the Bastior front to fight in the Fourth Tyrannic War, which is why we see him appear in Space Marine 2. The last known location we had for Guilliman was in the Pariah Nexus in the Dawn of Fire novels, so maybe when the Lion arrives to talk with his brother, he might not even be in Ultramar. And since Calgar is also absent, the Lion might have to meet with Titus, since Guilliman has essentially placed him as Warden of Ultramar, and we could argue that currently he's the highest ranking authority in Ultramar. Now, if this is true and the Lion and Titus meet, Titus will surely send an urgent message to Guilliman informing him of his brother's return. Also, I think a big point is that Guilliman doesn't know that the Lion has awakened and is gallivanting across the galaxy, so this information changes everything for Guilliman. One of his brothers is alive and in the Imperium. That definitely is a huge game changer, and he will surely seek to meet with him as soon as possible. But the big question is, what does the Lion want to say to Guilliman? That, "Brother, we need to talk," could mean many things. And I don't know about you, but when the missus says, "we need to talk," it's usually bad news. On the one hand, it could have something to do with Imperium Secundus. The Lion was never really convinced of the whole Imperium Secundus thing, and if they had gone to Terra earlier instead of establishing Imperium Secundus, they might have arrived in time to prevent the Emperor's death. But now that I think of it, maybe they've already hashed all this out on Terra after the siege before the Lion travelled to Caliban, so maybe it has nothing to do with Imperium Secundus at all. Furthermore, according to Arbiter Ian's video, the book 500 Worlds Titus suggests that Guilliman seems to be rebuilding his legion in Ultramar. Apparently, the Doom Eagles are establishing several apothecarians on different planets west of Ultramar to try to swell the ranks of Guilliman's Marines. And already they're receiving messages from the Inquisition going, "Hey, what the hell is going on?" Because it could look like Guilliman is rebuilding his legion, and that goes directly against his own Codex Astartes, which is quite hypocritical of him indeed. He himself established the limit of 1,000 Marines per chapter so that nothing like the Horus Heresy could ever happen again. Basically, the whole idea was that no one single individual, be it a Primarch or a chapter master, could be in control of a high number of Marines so that if they turned traitor, their numbers would be more manageable for the Imperium to deal with. But now it seems that Guilliman is disregarding his own rules, something that many Inquisitors and high-ranking officials of the Imperium could disapprove of or even suspect him of heresy, because one could argue that it looks like Guilliman is gathering too much power. In fact, one of the narrative points of the book seems to be that many Imperials fear that Guilliman is trying to forge his own Imperium to replace the Emperor, something that Titus and the Ultramarines are striving to deny in order to restore confidence in their Primarch. Now, it's also true that in this new Indomitus era, where the Tyranids are arriving in huge numbers threatening to consume the galaxy, and with the Great Rift splitting the Imperium in two, leaving half of it isolated and poorly defended, perhaps it's time to reform the Codex, allowing Space Marine chapters to bolster their numbers to cope with the magnitude of the new threats ravaging the Imperium. And sure, Guilliman has penned a new Codex Imperialis, but that has to do more with the civilian side of the Imperium's bureaucracy more than its military organization. So yeah, perhaps the Imperium is long due a new Codex 2.0 to deal with the scale of threats they're facing. On the one hand, the Lion might not take issue with all this at all. He himself is seeking to rebuild his legion, gathering different successor chapters of the Dark Angels and searching for the fallen who can be redeemed to join his ranks. A point you might raise is that the Lion wasn't there when Guilliman created the Codex, so he might not be aware of the hypocrisy of Guilliman's actions. But I think it's safe to assume that the Dark Angels will have put him up to speed of Guilliman's Codex and how the legions were shattered. So yeah, I'm willing to bet that the Lion is up to date with everything and aware of his brother's hypocrisy. Although, again, seeing that he's doing the same thing, he might not care too much about it, or he might just think that this is the right way to go forward. What might actually bother the Lion is seeing Guilliman gaining too much power and perhaps viewing this as an Imperium 2.0, or well, Imperium Tertius if you will. Now that might spark some tension between the two, especially with Guilliman unleashing a buttload of new Primarchs Marines upon the galaxy. Now that might be something the Lion might want to chat about. On the other hand, maybe the Lion is coming to warn Guilliman of the danger posed by Vashtor, of how Caliban was transformed into wormwood, and that together with Abaddon, they are plotting something that will be devastating for the Imperium. Or maybe he's coming to warn Guilliman about a completely different new threat, perhaps something related to the events of Dawn of War 4, since considering that Dawn of War 4 takes place in Imperium Nihilus, I think it's safe to assume that the events of Dawn of War 4 precede the Lion's arrival in Ultramar. In the last Dawn of War 4 trailer I covered on the channel, if you remember, I made a point about the trailer mentioning a threat buried deep under the sands of Cronus. Something lost for eons, never meant to return. Perhaps some powerful Catan shard or something completely different. And maybe, just maybe, this is the threat the Lion has come to warn Guilliman about. Or perhaps it's none of the above, and the Lion simply wants to meet with his brother to catch up, to hear Guilliman's report on the state of the galaxy, the Emperor, how the Imperium is faring, what forces it has, and what threats his father's kingdom faces. He may even offer his services and ask his brother how he can help, where he is needed most. So yeah, this meeting could go many different ways. It could be an emotional reunion between long-lost brothers, it could be a heated argument, or it could just be very serious, dramatic, and to the point given the state of the galaxy. For my part, I doubt that the Lion will go all aggressive towards Guilliman, since the Lion we've seen in 40k differs greatly from the Lion of the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. The Lion from 30k might argue about ranks and who should have more authority, demanding the title of War Master or something similar, or maybe saying that in any case he should be crowned Lord Regent before Guilliman. But the Lion we've seen awaken 10,000 years later is changed. He's older, wiser, he doesn't seem so stubborn or hot-headed. Also, the Lion has seen his mistakes that led to the destruction of Caliban and the exile of so many of his loyal sons. Mistakes he now seeks to remedy. When he learned that Guilliman was still alive, he seemed relieved, almost hopeful that all was not lost. In fact, as seen in The Lion, Sons of the Forest, one of the first things that came to his mind when the Lion learned that Guilliman was alive was that he wasn't alone, that he could join the bastions of mankind that still stood to fight against the darkness. So personally, this is my guess. The Lion is coming to join forces with Guilliman, to report on his return, and to offer his Dark Angels and the successors under his control to join forces with the Imperium at large, so that together they can fight against the darkness that threatens to consume their father's realm. The Lion may also come to warn him of some kind of new threat unknown to Guilliman, but ultimately I believe the Lion's coming to say, "Brother, I'm here, let's fight together to defend the Imperium." Also, the Lion and Guilliman have a lot of catching up to do, like 10,000 years. Stuff like, hey, so what's up with these new Primarchs Marines? And also, Dad's a god now? What the hell? Not only that he's being worshipped as a god and how their father's Imperium has fallen since the times of the Great Crusade, but also the way the Emperor's power manifests in the warp and the kind of being the Emperor is now compared to the one they used to know. Maybe they can both have a little debate or philosophical/metaphysical conversation about the Emperor's divinity or lack thereof, just like Guilliman had with Ilian Natase in Dark Imperium. That definitely would be very interesting to see. Also, Guilliman could fill the Lion in on everything that went down during the Great Scouring after he went missing. Stuff like the Battle of the Iron Cage, the disappearance of the rest of their brothers, and how Guilliman was wounded by Fulgrim and was kept in stasis for 10,000 years until he was brought back to life thanks to an Eldari witch and a quote-unquote mad scientist. Guilliman could also inform Lion of the nature of the new Xenos threats facing the Imperium, such as the Tyranids, the Necrons, and the Tau Empire, which the Lion might have faced by now, but maybe isn't aware of the scale of the threat they pose to the Imperium, especially the Tyranids and the Necrons. There's just so much they could talk about, and I for one can't wait to hear the Lion's reaction to everything that's changed in these 10,000 years. So where are we going to see this long-awaited epic reunion? Well, we might see it in the 500 Worlds campaign books. If the first one ends with this message from the Lion, this narrative may be explored further in subsequent campaign books. Now, it is true that the return of loyal Primarchs like Guilliman and the Lion have been featured in campaign books, like The Gathering Storm and Arcs of Omen Lion, so it would make sense that something as big as the meeting between the Lion and Guilliman would first appear in a campaign book and then perhaps be further developed in a novel. However, based on the names of the campaign books and their covers, it doesn't seem like they're going to deal with the meeting between the Primarchs, but rather it seems like they're going to be focused on the war between the Ultramarines and the Necrons of Necrosauramentar. So maybe this is just a massive tease. Maybe the Lion arrives in Ultramar and doesn't find his brother and does something else while he awaits for Guilliman's return, which we will hear in a different campaign book sometime in the future, which would be very disappointing to be honest. Be that as it may, at least it is confirmed that the Lion is looking for his brother Guilliman, and we are closer than ever to seeing the reunion of both loyal Primarchs in M42. What do you think the Lion wants to talk to Guilliman about? Leave your theories in the comments. If you liked the video, you know the drill. Leave a like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon in the next video.